Hey everybody, let's talk about the new moon in Libra coming up very soon. I'm in a very Pluto kind of mood, Pluto direct. So um, I'm probably going to be even more direct than I normally am. So let's go. Okay, let's get to the chart. There it is there. So the new moon in Libra, ruled by Venus, 21st of October, Southern Hemisphere, 20th of October for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere. Now, typically speaking, a new moon in Libra is very beautiful, right? It's ruled by Venus. Um, and to add to that, the ruler, Venus, is in her own home sign. So, there's really beautiful, fertile energy that we can plant our seeds into in a very Venusian way, all things Venus, creativity, love, relationships, connections, all Venusian things. Now, for some people, it's money. I never talk about money and how to make money and the stocks and all of that because it just doesn't interest me. I appreciate that other people are into that, but that's not my cup of tea, so don't really talk about it. But it is important to address that Venus typically does also connect to money and resources as well, not just money. So what's really happening here, though? This is not just your regular little new moon in Libra. This is quite an explosive new moon in Libra, actually. Don't let the Libran Venusian elements fool you into thinking that this is all going to be roses and gardens and flowers. From a collective perspective, this is really, I think this is really going to stimulate more, more people speaking up, more people standing up, more people realizing the fucking truth, using their voice, choosing wisely with their actions relative to the phase two of the diabolical phase two that they're trying to, roll out, right? Which is happening, you know, it's I said in the Pluto direct video and the Pluto out of bounds video that things are going to accelerate because Pluto is direct and it's out of bounds. And they are accelerating on both sides, right? But because Libra is a sign of balance and justice and fairness and equality, I think this particular new moon is going to really heighten that that need, that desire, and that well thing that's missing in this fucking world: fairness, justice, equality, justice, and so forth. Now, I think what's really going to amplify all of this is. You see Pluto up here, right? It's direct now. It's like fully, started moving. There's no little S there anymore. It's not stationary. It's like, it's it's getting ready to roll those wheels forward. Now, even though it's in Aquarius, it's actually square this new moon out of sign, but very, 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 very close. And in opposition to the moon, we have Chiron. So, this is literally the people, Pluto and Aquarius, squaring the new moon, opposite Chiron. This is the people, really coming out with more of an uproar, right? Of the resistance to what people are not satisfied with, right? I mean, this is not about, just, rebels and conspiracy theorists and, people who live outside the box. This is about every single one of us, as I've mentioned in my previous two videos. You know, This is the time. We are in the time to rise. And even though, like, it may feel like, still, it probably feels very hard for some people. Um, there's probably, still a lot of fear in a lot of people thinking that these systems can actually win. They can't. That's it's not an ideal I have in my head. It's a fact. They cannot implement anything if we do not consent. It all falls to fucking shit the moment we just say no. And a new moon in Libra cycle, I mean, it's the birth of a new cycle, right? So we're not going to see it on that day. But this is what's going to kick off with this new moon in Libra. It's gonna, because it's square Pluto and opposite Chiron. Chiron is that part where people are feeling deeply fucking hurt and deeply wounded and deeply fearful as well. See, the matter of Chiron, where there's one of the primary themes of Chiron is the fear of rejection. So let's let's put that theme into the current narrative, which is pumped out in a way to uh, falsely lead people to believe that if you don't do this, you're going to be locked out of this, locked out of that, locked out of your fucking life, basically. So you might as well just, fucking put a straight jacket on and sit there with a fucking tube in your mouth, right? Or you can stand up. That's the fear of rejection part of Chiron here. It's the fear of, if I don't comply, I'm gonna lose my entitlements, my freedoms. The fucking fact is, it's the contrary. You will lose it all once you comply. Once you consent, it's fucking gone. That's the point. And with Pluto squaring this new moon in Aquarius, that's going to be an intensified volume of energy of more people rising and resisting. That we've got I noticed today that there was an announcement of some protesting that's coming up very soon, next month actually. Interesting. It'll probably be towards the end of this new moon, I think, somewhere around there. The end of the cycle, I mean. Um, protesting in Melbourne, right, which is all about resisting, standing up, not consenting to the DGID. Okay. This is, I think, the first protest we're seeing. I could be wrong, but as far as I know, this is the first protest. It's going to be massive, right? That's going to be held in the city. And this is just what's going to happen everywhere. Okay. I saw a recent video in Italy where the actual police put their batons and fucking pepper sprays and whatnot. They put it all down and they actually marched with the people. The police force marched with the people. There's big shit going on, big things happening. This is going to continue. It's going to escalate. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's exactly what needs to happen. See, even though this particular plan that they have, which they've had for a very long time, which is in plain fucking sight on the Economic Forum website, the Agenda 2030, it's been there for a long time. It's not a fucking revelation, but it is to many people. They've put it there in black and white. It's been in the cards for a long time, and now is the time where they are trying to take that next step from a physical perspective to start to implement. They're testing the waters of who's going to bite. Now, China fucking, forget about it, right? They've been on that fucking zone, in that zone for a long time. I was speaking to a Chinese lady yesterday in a store that I went into, And I just asked her if she was from China. She said yes. And I've seen her several times. And so I felt comfortable talking to her. She's very lovely. And I just asked her what her opinion was on the state of China. And she was trying to be very polite because, Chinese culture has a particular way about them. They're not necessarily, really overt and really kind of vocal and, there's a lot of, this business going on. So she politely tried to explain to me how mortified she is about her country, that it's not anything new necessarily because China's always been heavily dictated and dominated, and it's had tyranny around it for a long time. And perhaps the perspectives on that a long time ago were very different to what they would be right now because of what it's led to, which is prison, living in a fucking prison, basically. And if you don't know this, this is a fact. This is what they will do to every other country if people don't fucking stand up. The minute you sign into their little system and you're basically like this, the moment you do something that goes against this prison that you've stepped into, not only will you get locked out and unable to move and live like a fucking human being, but in China, what they do is they put people's names and faces on massive big screens in the city, and they publicly shame them because the Chinese culture is very sensitive to things like this. They're not like these Australian fucking bogans here in Australia, where they just walk around and they go, F you, F this, F that, who gives a fuck, whatever. The Chinese people are not like that. So, it's such a big thing for them to go through that. I saw a Chinese reporter who was imprisoned for speaking up on these things. So these things are not a laughing matter. None of these things are a laughing matter. And even though it's going to take a while for them to try and implement all this stuff, all they're going to do day by day, little bit by little bit, behind the scenes in the background where they create further draconian laws and stuff, right? That people just have no fucking clue about. They're just building little things slowly, slowly, right? And they're just trying to, collect the herd, right? And put it all in there. That's basically all they're trying to do. Now, you may not be interested in this topic and you've probably tuned out if you're not, and that's okay. I don't really give a fuck. I do give a fuck about the entire human race and what we are potentially facing and stepping into if we don't snap out of it. Simple as that. And this new moon, going back to this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous new moon in Libra, with Venus in Libra, we can't just sit there and, fucking talk about this with little shades on our fucking eyes, little rose-colored glasses and go, oh my God, this is going to be just such a beautiful new moon in Libra. Venus is in Libra and it's all about love and it's all about romance. And hey, look, yeah, sure. That stuff's there too, because we all have a personal life, right? We all have a creative life. We all have things that we love, that we want to connect to or connect with, things that we enjoy, our pleasures, our sensual appetites, because that's all Venusian stuff. But I don't want to talk about the stuff that you already know about. What's the point of talking about that when there's much more important things to talk about? And that is humanity and where we are headed. There's a square from Jupiter as well. So, as a matter of chat, what we're talking about here is a grand cross in cardinal signs, except for Pluto because it's in Aquarius, which is a fixed sign. However, if Pluto was, just 1 degree back, 29 of Capricorn, which is, it's so close to it, right? That would make it a technical grand cross. It still is a grand cross, but Pluto is out of sign. But that doesn't mean that this grand cross doesn't hold the weight that it could because of the archetypes involved. Chiron's very important, Pluto's very important, the new moon cycle is very important, Jupiter is very important. All of them are in different ways, and they all represent different things. Obviously, I'm not concerned about the Jupiter being square the new moon. I see Jupiter as our helper. And I see the new moon as more people, as I said, really starting to clearly see and identify the injustices and the imbalance that will be implemented if we do not say no. That's what this is about, this cycle here. If we want to go into relationship territory, I think, this is a bit of a sore zone for relationship matters for certain individuals, and it will definitely connect to backstories. When Chiron's involved, there's always some fucking pain that's got to come out. There's some deep fucking thing that's been, eating away in some kind of way, and it's got to be released. And it's opposite the new moon. It's got to come out. And it will. The question will be, how will I deal with what comes up? The square from Pluto is, it's such an intense energy. A square aspect is so intense to begin with. And Pluto is the most intense body in the chart. So the square from Pluto, particularly because Pluto is in Aquarius, it's just going to be more of, the protests and the people pretty much just showing up more and more and more and more and more. It's interesting, actually. I'm sure you have observed this just yourselves. I don't know how many selves you've got, but alter ego. 5 years ago, when they rolled out their first main psychosis, the fact of the matter is that most people fell for it. We don't need to keep repeating the same fucking shit over and over again. We all know that's what happened. But, fast forward 5 years later, it's a very different story now because, people got stung, some a lot more severely than others, and that led them to waking up and realizing. So this next phase that they're trying to roll out, they're pushing against, much more people, much, 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 much more people. That's evident if you just go online, social media, Instagram, wherever, all these different platforms. There's literally fucking millions of people all pretty much saying no. I've seen so much footage, especially the UK has gone fucking psycho. Like the UK government, the systems there, they've just lost the plot completely. I mean, they're not trailing too far behind here, but I've seen, so much footage of, law enforcement walking into people's homes and arresting like teenagers for looking at a post online that goes against what's accepted. I mean, did you ever think that we would be living in such a, you know, fucking utopia, no, so dystopian type of reality? Did you ever think we would ever be here? I didn't, but I'll tell you what, the reason we are here is because Pluto out of bounds means it's time to kick all these motherfuckers out. It's time to fucking, put them in this thing where they just get exploded into the other side completely and just disappear. Disappear. We don't need them anymore. We never did actually. But they don't hold the power of balance at the moment. They like to make you think they do, and they're going to do everything in their power to paint that picture left, right, and center. They've been doing it actually for years in very subtle ways, very subtle ways. But people, um, people are so easily programmed. So, people have been programmed to think, oh, that's normal, that's normal, that's not, it's classic psychology fucking 101 played out on the human fucking collective stage. But I think what's happening is everyone's I want to say soul, is kind of something's going on inside people, and they're thinking, hang on a minute, fucking I didn't sign up to this life for this. Well, what is this? What the fuck is this shit? Tell me if you agree. And tell me if you disagree, if you want to. That's okay. If you disagree, I'm not going to argue with you. I don't have time for that. I'm here to speak on the truth. I know truth is a pathless land and everyone has their own perspective on truth and yada, yada, yada. Let's not get all philosophical about the truth at the moment. I'm talking about the truth of this diabolical reality that they are trying to implement. That's the truth I'm talking about right now. And that's all I care about right now. That for the future of ourselves, our children, our children's children. And look, I mean, I'm talking about this again today, even though I spoke about it in the last couple of videos, because Pluto stationing direct and out of bounds is, as I said, it's escalating and, things are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And um, we just simply cannot deny what is actually going on, what is being proposed. We cannot deny it. We can't live in fucking la la land. You might be a person who says, well, you know what, I don't give a shit. I just live off grid and I'm not a part of it and whatever. Okay, well, good luck to you. If you do live like that, good on you. Good luck to you. Well done. Bravo. But it's not just about you. It's about all of us. The power is in unity, not in division. Unison. All of us. That's where the power is. There is no greater power than that, except for the divine, of course. So actually, I just want to, I think I posted it on YouTube as well, but it's just one beautiful line that I just really love because it just says it all. We are the warriors of truth, eternally aligned. We are the warriors of truth, eternally aligned. That comes out of a song that Sia sang. Sia is an Australian artist. I absolutely love her song that she just released a couple of days ago, which is called, the song is called This Is My Fight Song or something like that. And I just noticed that she's releasing a lot of music, particularly lately. And if you see the videos and listen to the lyrics, it just depicts, right, this spiritual war that we are in. That's what it depicts. And it talks about, unity and being a phoenix and rising and not being, enslaved and chained and so on and so forth. So, everyone's in this, in their own way, and everyone's um, giving and sharing and communicating and connecting through their artistry or whatever it may be. So, what else have we got here? We've got Mars-Pluto conjunction in Scorpio. Yeah. Well, that's, look, in certain situations, that's that's poisonous words. Aggressive, poisonous words that might be projected or they might You might project them or somebody might project them onto you and the like. It's a very, very, very a very dark, intense type of energy, that Mercury, Mars, it's like the sword just cutting through, right? But it can be very hurtful, if somebody uses that energy towards somebody else. So it's very nasty. And I guess we kind of need to be careful because Mars is not about considering others, it's more about its own desires and what it wants to achieve, and it has to fucking win no matter what. Mars is about winning, period. It's the, god of combat and war. And if you go back into Babylonian astrology, Mars was Pluto, basically. He was the lord of the underworld, but he was much worse than Pluto. He just took pleasure out of killing. So, a Mars in Scorpio conjunct Mercury in Scorpio, that can be pretty nasty territory if it's projected and used from a revengeful space. So something to be aware of. Jupiter's in Cancer, so that's still really, really great for us. Even though it's square Chiron and square the new moon, it's still, pardon me, in its exalted position. I've still got this cold flu thing going on, just the tail end of it. So pardon me. Um, yeah, Jupiter in Cancer, I see that as the helper, the one that comes in and gives you that sense of faith and hope to not fucking give up and give in, to just keep going with whatever they throw at you, just keep going. We are here to be the ultimate warriors of truth. Literally, that's what this time is about. And I'm going to be talking about this a lot moving forward as well, because it has to be talked about. It has to be reminded. It has to be voiced. It has to be understood. It has to be realized. We're not fucking around here. People might think, oh, I'm just going to lay back and I'm just going to fucking, count my dollar bills, or I'm going to eat my cake or whatever the fuck. No, sorry, you're not. Because if these systems succeed, you're not going to have that, mate. It's all going to be fucking taken away in one way or another, because you will have to live like that or like that. It's as blatantly simple as that. Sorry to be a bearer of heavy, heavy messages, but I've got to talk about what's real and what's happening. Let me just see something here. So Saturn's still retrograde, Neptune's retrograde, Chiron's retrograde. Uranus is retrograde. So when planets are retrograde, the energy is primarily internalized. Things are being resolved or worked on internally. That can be a struggle sometimes, that can be a win sometimes, just depends what's going on. But it's Pluto's the leader right now because it's Pluto's direct, right? And it's squaring the new moon. So this is a new moon about justice, fairness, equality, and the people. That's what this is about. Pure and fucking simple. As I said, the Chiron opposite the new moon might, trigger or activate some relationship stuff that are still unresolved or problematic. Um, and yeah, you just have to do your best to process it and work through it, whatever it is, you know. It's hard for me to speak to that any more specifically because it's going to be, you know, a different thing for every single one of you. But, you know, Chiron always brings up some type of pain. It's just important to remember that. But look, Venus is still trying Pluto. She's still trying Uranus. So we've got this grand trine still in play. She's still opposite Neptune. So that kite that I spoke about, you know, a couple of days ago, it's still in the mix here with this new moon. Um, so I guess, you know, from a creative perspective, that kite energy really brings in um, a really powerful creative energy for all of us. And I think probably what's even more important is because the kite is held by Neptune, Neptune is what creates the kite in this grand trine, then it's got to do with spirit, you know, with spirit and truth and consciousness and the divine source. And, you know, maybe some people will just be more reminded of, you know, what's really important here and what really holds the ultimate balance of power, that it's not these man-made false systems and man-made laws that are corrupt and that are draconian for the most part and that are used in order to take people's freedoms and liberties away and to punish people, you know. um, that's not why Earth was created. You know, that's not supposed to be our natural experience. Our natural experience should be in accordance with natural law and God's will. But because we've got so many people on the planet, and it's only a minority, though, you know, that live up in that little section up there that appear to hold the balance of power. And that could be through bloodlines and the like, for sure. But it's very fucking simple, just to sound repetitive. It comes back to the order of the planets. From the sun right through to Saturn, which are the seven traditional planets, right? You've got the consensus state, the consensus reality. Anything beyond Saturn starts to break new ground and go into transcendent fields, fields that actually would reflect more the true reality of what our life actually should look like. And because the conditioning is so heavy in this third dimension reality, it takes a long time to break those shackles. But because Pluto is out of bounds in the southern declination, which is said to be um, when Pluto is at that point, it is when the tables turn. It's when, you know, the balance of power goes back to the people. And again, like I said, you know, these things don't change overnight. And because there's a whiff, there's a sense in the ether because of the way people have been rising up for the last 5 years, that actually, you know what? This herd that we've been controlling for so long, they're not gonna, you know, lay down very easily here. We've got to fucking battle up our hands, you know. We've got to find ways to try and shut this down as soon as possible. That's their thinking primarily. Could you imagine living in a world and a reality where whatever food you eat is based on a score system? You're entitled to certain points about how much food you eat and what exactly you eat per day. In what sane world or version of reality is that normal? Just think about that. If you're a foodie, it'll get to you. You know, that's just one example of what they are trying to do. I think in the UK, they've already started this score system bullshit. But people there are, you know, they're rising up. They're not just sitting down. And the latest in the UK was that the systems are trying to force, what is it? I think it was 8 million, I think it was 8 million people in like, big companies and CEO positions and the like to implement that DGID, like trying to force them to do it. So, they're going after the bigger fish to start with, because they're not going to come after people like me and you, so to speak, right? We're nothing. We're just down at the bottom of the food chain for them. They're going to go after the bigger, you know, so-called bigger fish first, because there's a lot of money there, that's where they're going. So, um, the point though is that because even in that stream where the bigger kind of fish are, so to speak, that's a minority as well, relative to the amount of people on the earth. Most of humanity are poor, right? But that's where most of the fucking power lies. In the poor people, in you know, the majority. Fuck, sorry, I'm just feeling really, really, really passionate about all of this again. This is just, this is exactly how I was feeling 5 years ago when I was speaking up on those things, which I stood my ground, I stuck to my word, I did my best to say no, and that's what I did. And this is what I'm going to do again now. And I feel being born as a double Aquarius, which, by the way, yes, it's ruled by Uranus. And this you'll relate to this if you're an Aquarius, or you have Aquarius rising or Aquarius moon. The other ruler is Saturn. And one thing that is said in Babylonian astrology about Saturn was not seen as such a bad guy in Babylonian astrology. In modern sort of Western modernized astrology, Saturn is a pretty difficult energy, and it is. We won't deny that. But in Babylonian astrology, Saturn actually was more of a symbol of truth, as in spiritual truth, the highest truth. So once you break those Saturnian systems that are just these conditioned systems that have been integrated by certain individuals, once you break those little chains and stick your head up and have a look through, that's when you start to work with Saturn in a very different way, because you don't see Saturn out there anymore. That's when it becomes integrated. And that's when you can tap into the part of Saturn that represents truth, spiritual truth. And once you tap into that and connect with that, you can't help but not, want to speak on it. It's like speaking God's word. It's like you can't, you've got to speak on the injustices. We can't just allow this nonsense to continue. I mean, look at what happened to Jesus. We don't want a repeat of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's how I feel about this new moon, in short. Um, Today the sun is conjunct Spica, today as in the 18th of October. And Spica is my star. She's my lady. She's the most powerful star in my chart. And she has, really blessed me, looked after me spiritually in ways that I could never ever tell you. But anyway, she's conjunct the sun today, and I guess perhaps that's why I'm feeling more in tune with speaking about God and source and truth, and what is right, what is right. Now, philosophically speaking, yes, there is no right or wrong, there is no good or bad on that philosophical scale relative to evolution. But in the process of our evolutionary journey, we do come up into these massive transitional points where the matter of what's right and what's just and what's fair and what's truth is fucking important for all of us. And it's a collective thing. So our philosophical ideas and beliefs and the like is a separate matter. This is a time where all of us are being affected. They're trying to infect us, and we have the power to say, no, thank you. No, thank you. I saw a great little video, and I'll sign off here. There's a lady at an airport, and I forgot what she called it, something about biometrics and stuff like that. So she was going through, the section where you go through into the airport where you show your passport and stuff, and she was asked to be photographed. Um, and she said, no, thank you. I don't wish to participate in that. And she didn't, and they didn't take her photograph, and she just went through. But she filmed that, not with a video, not with her phone holding it up onto the officers and whatever customs people on in their faces. She had it in her pocket, so you could, like, the view was coming out of her pocket, and you could just see her, and you can see her speaking, and you could hear the people she was talking to, and you could see where the cameras were and the screens were, and how she politely said, "No, thank you, I don't wish to participate in that." So, sometimes a bit more of an intense response is required, and other times, most of the time, not. We can peacefully say no as well. That's what Libra also speaks to, new moon in Libra, Venus in Libra. We can peacefully, gracefully say no, thank you. It's a lot more powerful, actually, if you can just do it that way. So, wishing you all a really wonderful new moon cycle. And if you are one of those people that, sets your intentions and writes things down, and that's what I'll be doing. I'll be setting very specific intentions for this new cycle myself. And I will be tapping into, certainly the vibration of Venus that is about love and creativity and pleasure and connection. And enjoyment, things like that, and bringing in more balance into my own life. And I say this to all of us. This is something we can all do. But I will also have in the back of my mind that, this new moon is opposite Chiron, square Jupiter, square Pluto. And it's a cardinal square except for Pluto. And cardinal energy, just a reminder, is actually about taking action. It's not about sitting back and, sitting on the fence, because Libra likes to sit on the fence, you know, and that has its value. And that has its purpose because it enables one to, to have some deliberation time, to kind of reflect on things. Nothing wrong with that at all. But Aries is opposite Libra, and it is Aries that comes in and says, okay, you've thought about it. Well, now it's time to take some fucking action. Take the step towards it. That's Aries. Because Chiron is in Aries and it's opposite this new moon, as I said before, it might be that people are, they're cautious, they're scared. God, if I don't do that, and if I don't follow that, and if I don't accept that, what's going to happen to me? Well, what's going to happen to you is when you do follow it, you're just going to have the handcuffs on. Simple as that. Alrighty, I'm going back to music now. That's what I was doing before I came on, listening to music, just trying to soothe myself with music. I will see you all very, very soon. Don't be afraid to be and to step into your God-given right of sovereignty. I would rather be taken out than live on my fucking knees. And I mean that. Much love.